Oh no, we're surrounded. Well, I wish... I need to have some more natural cover that I can place anywhere. Oh, I know. Let's make some bushes. Hey, I'm Leif. Welcome to Devs and Dice. Today I'm doing some quick and easy bush scatter terrain that I can use to create some natural covers in the environment. Let's get to it. So I'm going to start out by using some of this cardstock that I got from a brush set. Now I started out with just Sharpie sort of penciling in some organic shapes, and this seemed like a good idea, but I honestly sort of discovered that what's the point? I want to take advantage of every little inch of this, so I just cut it up into 3 large pieces, and then I essentially decided that some of them would be large bases, and some of them would be medium, and some of them would be small. And then I just pursued cutting these out with the scissors until I had some sort of organic shapes. Now I used the same Sharpie just to sort of color in the edges because I didn't want them to look papery. So I'm just penciling in and sort of coloring them black all around. Now, one thing that I wanted to try out, I had a theory that if I used some string, perhaps I could use this as a means to sort of create one type of shrubbery or bush. Now as you can see, I'm just folding this sort of string over and over again, and I'm unsure exactly what kind of string it is, but I'm willing to bet that most kinds would be applicable for this. The inspiration for this actually comes a little bit from how you make armatures for trees. So I'm just sort of trying to separate the string into its individual strands. I'm doing this with all of the string that I have there. And once I have, a bunch of them, I start bringing some of them together again. And once I have a clump of them, you can start to sort of see hints of, what sort of, well, I don't know, small tree or bush this will become. Now I'm going to hot glue the bottom of it, and I'm using a low temperature hot glue gun, so the warmth isn't actually hurting me that much. So I'm just sort of putting a dab there, and then I'm actually putting it straight on the cutting mat, which I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but that was easy for me, and I know I can pull them off from there. And eventually I had created a total of 7 of these. Now, in order to make these look a little bit more like some sort of small tree, I sort of twisted them up and then I dropped on some easy flowing super glue. Now the super glue will act quite quickly and harden these up. And that's the end result. So once the super glue has set, I go about sort of trying to shape the branches, if you will. And this I'm just essentially squashing them out and trying just to make them as separate as possible. And this I'm doing with all of these small, well, let's call them shrubberies. And here's the secret ingredient. I'm going to use static grass 7mm straw from Woodland Scenics. Now in order to attach this, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to use some spray adhesive from Noch. Now I spray this onto the actual crown, and I just sprinkle on some of that nice static grass. And then tap off a little bit, and voila! What we have is something that doesn't really look like string, it looks like small branches. Perhaps it has thorns or something like that. Once I completed one, soon I completed the second one, third one, and so on. Once all of them were done and had, dried, I hit them all with a little bit of leather brown, primer from Army Painter. and yeah, messy. Now, I had previously to this, I had ground up some clump foliage into light, medium, and dark flock. I hit these shrubberies again with some of that spray adhesive, and I just sprinkle on some of that flock. And as you can see, I'm outside and the wind is of course picking up. Perfect timing as usual. But you know what, it works out pretty good. I just get a little bit more casualties in terms of the flock, but that's fine. Once I had one done, again I go through all of this. As you can see, this is sort of assembly style production. I try to do this as often as possible when I'm doing these builds that contain multiple scatter terrain pieces. And that's what it looked like. Pretty nice, and I mixed and matched, you know, all of the different flocks however I chose. Now for the second secret ingredient, and this is coconut fiber. You can find it in most hobby shops. You can also find it, I think, in gardening shops actually. Now here I'm just checking for scale, and this is one of the smaller bushes that's 1 inch wide approximately. I hot glue this on, and you can see at this point it doesn't really look like much, but this is pretty much just the understructure which we're going to be flocking in the future. So on these larger bases, I glue down these sort of coconut fibers as well, give them a little bit of a trim, and this is what we have all in all. And here I think I'm desperately trying to count how many I have, and I still today don't know. Probably lost some in the process. Now, since this was cardstock that I used for the bases, I didn't want to use any PVA glue because that would create massive warping. So I used super glue and just some, you know, different sort of stones just to get some sort of texture on it. At this point, I started flocking the actual sort of bushes, the coconut fiber bushes. This I'm doing exactly the same way. I wanted these to look a little bit more thorny, so the largest ones, I'm hitting those with the same static grass flock. And once that has dried, I tried desperately to prime these, which was quite difficult without handling them. So I sort of had to, felt a little bit like probably handling a hot potato with your bare hands, but yeah, messy, but I got it done. Now, once that primer had dried, I hit them again with this spray adhesive, and then I just add some of the flock on top of that. And again, we're going through all of these, and I'm mixing up colors however I choose. Some are darker, some are lighter, some are more mid, and there's really no rhyme or reason to how I'm doing this. And that's what we have so far. So, going back inside, now it's time more to focus on assembly. For the shrubbery, I cut off the stem at an height and an angle that I find, that looks okay. I put on a bead of hot glue, and I attach it to some of these larger bases that I did. Now, once the hot glue has, cooled off, I come in and I just drop some of that easy flowing super glue on the stem just so it really gets a nice proper bond onto the base. I do this with all of the larger ones, and of course, yes, I had planned this. I had 7 larger bases that had, some empty spaces that I of course put these shrubberies on. But you can do as many or as few as you want, of course. Now, in order to lock in all of that flock, I'm gonna use scenic cement, and this is woodland scenic solution, which is some sort of PVA glue. So in order to try to minimize the amount of PVA glue that hits on the base, I'm actually spraying it from a certain angle. And then I come in while this is still on and just flock it with some blended turf. Now once that had dried, I thought something was missing. I'm going to use these silicone thingamathings that you find in, you know, when you purchase shoes and whatnot. And I'm going to give them a red coat. And you can see I'm just putting them down on some parchment paper just so they dry out completely. And I'm just looking to use these as some sort of apples or yeah, berries or whatnot. They're a little bit large for berries. Now at this point I'm coming in with some PVA glue. I'm just dotting it here and there in the shrubberies. I decided that the shrubberies were some sort of fruit shrubbery. This is fantasy, so it could be whatever you want. Now once I had done that on all of the bases, or all of the shrubberies, I just wanted to cover the actual base a little bit more, and for this I'm using crushed up coconut fiber. And let's have a look at the final results, shall we? Alright, good folks, that's it. I think I did somewhere between 21 to 26 bushes, and this was all done in one day. Now, if I had to change something, I would have preferred to have made the bases out of MDF, but at the same time, that would have increased the build time quite a lot. So all in all, I think it was a win. But what did you think about the end result? Please tell me in the comment section down below. As always, I want to ask you to, if you like these videos, please consider subscribing, liking, or sharing them with any friends that might think these are interesting. With that, I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an awesome day. Stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video.